Dino Kogi West. Mr. President, I want to join my colleagues in appreciating the Committee on Finance and indeed the leadership of the Ninth Senate for the fastest reports on any on any MTEL since I got into the National Assembly in 2007. Mr. President, I will not want to be judged this morning as a member of the People's Democratic Party, but I will want us to put up our cap of reasons to judge me as a patriotic Nigerian, as a concerned Nigerian, as a worried Nigerian, as one who wants the life of my grandchildren that I may never know have a life structure for themselves through the instrumentality of MTEF and budget planning. Mr. President, borrowing is not a crime. Borrowing is not problematic. The problem is what you do with what you borrow. Mr. President, regime after regime, government after government, we borrow in this country, but it is laughable and ridiculous. It is outrageously calamitous that we are borrowing for consumables. It is unacceptable that we are borrowing for recurrent. No responsible father will borrow just to feed the family. I think in the Senate and under your capacity leadership, Mr. President, we must enact a law in the National Assembly that will forbid the federal government from borrowing for other purposes. If we want to borrow, it must be 100% for infrastructure. And Mr. President, and if we do that, we would have helped this country. We would have helped generation unborn. And I'm excited, I'm happy that by the grace of God, we must drive to logical conclusion the steps already taken in this very positive direction. Mr. President, my second point is on the convergence of the exchange rates. There is a need for us to converge the exchange rates. These multiple exchange rates is a lie, is fallacious, it cannot take us anywhere. Mr. President, in a country where some people get exchange rate officially for 370 and some anointed and favored people get it for 305, can only breed injustice, can only promote corruption. We must have a convergence of exchange rates. We must make sure that the multiple exchange rate is, the law promoting that with the CBN is amended so that we can, with sincerity of purpose, of heart and commitment, promote, promote justice and abolish round tripping. Mr. President, I also want to say that there is a need for us to enforce the application of ICT in oil production and management in this country. That is the only way to check corruption in that industry. When we do not apply technology to our per day production of crude oil, our sales of crude oil, it will continue to be shrouded in secrecy. Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, even Ghana have technology, and through ICT, you can sit down anywhere in the world and know their oil production and sales per day. But we have continued to refuse to implement that in this country because we want to continue to promote corruption. Under your leadership, I want us to make sure that the relevant committees make sure that this technology, which is just an app, it is not a miracle, it is not a rocket science, it's just an app. And once it is installed, it will curb corruption in the industry. Finally, Mr. Whip, I also want to say that, are we working for excess crude when we can increase our benchmark and then increase our expenditure on capital and infrastructure? We rather want to reduce the benchmark so that excess crude can grow. Are we working for excess crude in this country? And one would not even know how the excess crude is being expended. Finally, Mr. President, finally, on this document, if you look at item number 33, Mr. President, and this is in reaction to the presentation of the chairman of the Appropriation Committee. 33 there talks about the NNPC JV crude oil and gas profit, the profit oil, which Honorable Senator Barrow is disturbed that it reduced from 670 billion to 14 billion. Truth be said, Mr. President, that money was spent by the federal government. And from my investigation, I stand to be corrected that it was spent on projects that are not appropriated by the National Assembly and this country. So, I stand to be corrected, and I stand on this, Mr. President, that this money was spent on projects that were not appropriated. So I'm calling the attention of the Finance Committee, because we must, this is not a community meeting, please. This is the Senate. Mr. President, I am saying this because there's a need for the Finance Committee to look into this and make sure that, because it is I think Senator Barrow is as disturbed as myself to see that drive, so that it will be corrected subsequently going forward. I thank you, Mr. President. I thank my colleagues, and I wish us well.
Thank you very much.